The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. From improving emergency response times to protecting against cyber attacks, local, state, and federal governments are innovating with Google AI. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
Hi, I am Allie Ostrander. I am a professional runner for Wazelle and also a content creator on both YouTube and Instagram. I'm originally from Alaska, but now I live in Boulder, Colorado.
Yes, this episode features professional runner and social media influencer Allie Ostrander, who is here to share what running and racing has looked like for her over the past few years as she's returned to elite level competition in the many running disciplines that she pursues after going through treatment for disordered eating. And this is a journey that Allie has been very open about. But before you hear more from Allie, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have Allie Ostrander on the podcast. I have been wanting to feature her for a long, long time, and now is the time. So a little bit of background here on Allie. She has been an exceptional runner and racer since she was young, and her racing abilities span just about every type of discipline and terrain available to runners. Allie races on the track, she races on the road, she races cross country, and she races on the trails. And while a lot of top-level runners will race a few different disciplines, it is rare to see someone racing at the top level of so many different types of races. It is different to race on the track, on the roads, on a cross-country course, and of course in the mountains on trails. And furthermore, Allie races lots of different distances. And just to give you some sense of her range, on the track, she specializes in the steeplechase, which is 3,000 meters. That's just under 2 miles. And on the trails, she's raced up to 30 kilometers, which is roughly 18 miles. So yeah, big range. And Allie's interest in this wide diversification is rooted in a couple of factors.
I think a lot of it goes back to like growing up in Alaska and doing a lot of hiking and trail running when I was younger. It makes me feel pretty comfortable on the trails. But I think a big reason that I try to switch things up and run on different terrains is I just find that it helps me avoid injuries. I mean, obviously I got injured this year, but in the past, like if my track season goes too long, I find that things pop up, or usually when I start doing like very high intensity track workouts is when I'm the most injury prone. So by having like a track season and a trail season and starting out my year on the roads or cross country course instead of an indoor track, I find that I can have more consistent racing with a lower injury risk.
Allie also sees that, for her, these different types of training and racing benefit each other.
Sometimes it helps me to like, okay, I'm going to go improve my steeplechase time, but now I'm going to go do like a 30K on the trails, and that's also going to make me a better runner. And then next year, I'll have like way more of an aerobic engine because I did this, and that will help me be better at the steeplechase. And like, being able to step away from track, but knowing that I'm still getting better and like I'll drop those times again later.
So yes, at any given time, Allie's focused on what she's racing next, with the understanding that all the training she does will benefit all the different types of racing she's passionate about. And this is something that is very intentionally planned between Allie and her coach.
Like there's always a background focus on trails throughout the year. And there's always a background focus on track, even when I'm on the trails. And so kind of like always being ready with just a few weeks of specific training to take on something different.
So Allie races lots of different disciplines, and she excels at them. Just to give you a taste of her wide-ranging accolades, back in 2014, she won the prestigious Nike Cross Country Championships. The next year, 2015, she was the under-20 mountain world champion, and that same year, racing at the highest level of collegiate competition, D1, she placed second at the NCAA Cross Country National Championships. Then, in 2016, she placed 8th in the 5,000-meter event on the track at the Olympic trials. Then, over the next 3 years racing in the collegiate ranks, she dominated the steeplechase. She was the NCAA national champion in 2017, 2018, and 2019. And then she decided to forfeit her final year of collegiate racing to turn pro. Allie signed with the Brooks Beast racing team in July of 2019. Then things started to shift for Allie. A pattern of disordered eating had begun to catch up with her. At the strong urging of her Brooks Beast team, Allie entered treatment. And in 2021, Allie left the Brooks Beast team. And she continued on her road to recovery. Recovering from disordered eating is a tricky process for anyone, and especially for athletes. In the sport of running, the pressure to be exceptionally thin is very strong, and this excessive thinness is wrongly associated with performance. So, Allie had to discover what a strong, healthy body, mind, and emotional state meant for her. And that's exactly the journey she's been on. Over the past several years, Allie has not only been returning to racing well in the many disciplines that call to her, but racing with renewed passion and excitement, returning to disciplines she's excelled at in the past, as well as testing herself at some new, longer distances. Now, a couple of things to know before we get started here. Allie mentions Spencer, that is her fiance. And just for a little bit of clarity here, I don't want you to get confused. Allie does live in Boulder now, but she and Spencer just made that move last summer. So you're going to hear her talking about visiting Boulder, staying in an Airbnb. That was before the move, so just to be clear there. Also, Allie's going to refer to making Team USA, and she's referring to making the team that goes to the World Championships. She also talks about running qualifying times. And just as a reminder here, in many cases in running, in order to race in big championship events like national championships and Olympic trials, runners have to meet certain time standards. All right, we are ready now. Let's get into Allie's story, and she's going to begin with how things were going heading into 2024 as she prepared to start her season with the U.S. Cross Country National Championships, and this was the first time Allie would be racing a cross-country race that was this long. It was 10 kilometers, which is about 6 miles. So, now, here to tell her story is Allie Ostrander.
Yeah, I think I was feeling okay. Training wasn't going super consistently, but it wasn't, I didn't have any major injuries. I just felt like I was having to take extra cross training days here and there and adjust some workouts and stuff just to avoid injuries. So I was a little bit frustrated with that, but I was feeling good because I had started working with a new coach, David Roach, in September. And so we've been working together for about 4 months, and I really liked him and his training philosophy. So I wasn't feeling bad about it, but things weren't going perfectly, but I felt like I was getting everything in place to create the right trajectory for myself. And I just had been wanting to do US Cross for a while, and it had never really worked. And so to me, it seemed like a no-brainer. It's just a grass 10K in the beginning of the year to kick off the racing season, get some good competition, chance at Team USA. So it just made sense to do. And I had talked to my coach and he agreed. So we decided to make that my first race of the year. And, the goal wasn't to peak for this race, but it was to come out of that race feeling confident and excited for the rest of the season. US Cross is so interesting because it can vary widely in how competitive it is. And so I wasn't really sure what a realistic place goal was for myself, but I obviously knew that top 6 made the US team. So I was hoping for top 6, not really knowing if that was realistic or not. And I was mainly just going there to get back in the groove of racing, get some competition in the system, and start my year there. And I was super nervous for US Cross just because I hadn't done a cross country race since college. So it was definitely a little bit intimidating. It was also my first ever 10K in cross country. So I didn't know exactly what it would feel like, but it started out pretty conservative. Everyone was kind of together. And then around 4K in, Wayne Kaladi made a pretty big move. And 4K in was very early in a 10K for a big move to be made. So I didn't feel comfortable to go with it. A few people did. And then I was kind of off the back of this train of people that had gone with the move and were falling off. I was not feeling confident at all, the first 4K, and especially when the move went, I was really doubting myself and even wondering if I should drop out. It was just going to be embarrassing and I was going to run so bad. But I just kept taking it 1K at a time, and I didn't feel any worse as the Ks went by. I felt kind of bad the whole race. And so I just was kind of slowly picking people off for the next 4K. And then I settled into a group of, it was 4th through 7th place, I think, or no, 5th through 7th place. And we were kind of running together and then picked off one person. And then going into the last lap, I was, we were in a group of 4, 5, 6. And I was kind of wow, if I can stay with this group, then I can make the team and I could even get 4th. And so just was trying to really lean in and try to push the pace and make sure that I could, finish strong and hopefully get 4th. And I ended up in a sprint finish with Kaylee Hughes and ended up getting 4th in a dive. And the finish was crazy because Kaylee and I had been progressively picking up the pace for the last 3 kilometers. And our last K, I think, ended up being maybe the fastest in the race or second fastest or something. And so we had been picking it up the whole time. But then we get to the last 150, 200, and we're both sprinting. And I feel each of us is shifting gears. And every time one of us shifts, the other one matches it. And we just kept going back and forth, no more than a couple inches separating us all the way to the line. When you get in a finish like that, you're I was just desperate, because I was oh, I've run a whole 10K. I just want to be able to get the win in this sprint. We've grinded for so long. And so I was just, I didn't even think about it. I just dove. It wasn't I was all right, pre-race plan. If it's a tight finish, you're diving across the line. It was just what happened in the moment. I mean, I was super happy with how it went. I thought that I had gotten as much from myself as I could, and I was just so stoked that I had made the team and then had the world's race on my schedule. And I just felt it was a really big step in the right direction. I think between USAs and worlds, I had some really good training. So I felt I was more confident in my fitness going into worlds. I obviously still, have some doubts because you're going against like the literal best people in the world. So it's always going to be a little bit intimidating, but felt better about my fitness, and also was just like super excited to get to compete for Team USA. And I felt like the world's race was so much more of just like an open opportunity than USA's, where it was not a test, but a little bit more of that sort of a vibe. Whereas Worlds, it was like, all right, like just see what you can do. If there's nothing to lose, it's not like I'm the favorite to win Worlds or something. So I just went out there, and it was a really hot day. It was in Serbia, Belgrade. Anyways, it was unseasonably warm, like in the 80s, kind of humid, and the course was 5 loops of 2K that had like a mud pit and ramps and sand and like trees in the middle of the course. It was giving obstacle course vibes, and I really liked that. I just felt like it was so fun. Oh, and there were also hay bales. I just felt like it was so fun and different from anything I had ever done. And so I started out the race conservative because it was really hot, and I knew that there would be a lot of attrition. And I think I went out in like 45th place, and then just slowly through the race was working my way up and passing people. And I ended up getting 30th and was the second American. So I was like really happy with it, felt super strong, felt like I closed well and like paced myself well. And so overall was just, pretty stoked for it. I think one thing I haven't really mentioned is that like this year I had the cross country season planned, and then afterwards I had a track season planned where I wanted to try to qualify to the Olympic trials, race there, and make the Olympic team, which was a very lofty goal. I always knew it was, 1 to 5% chance that I could make that team. But I wanted to go after it because the Olympics only comes every 4 years, and it's an exciting opportunity. And this was going to be my first real track season since I had gone through eating disorder recovery. And so it was definitely like emotionally charged, but we had a really good plan. And when I say we, I mean my coach and I had a really good plan, starting off the year with cross country, a little bit lower pressure, less about time, less comparison driven, and then slowly work into track where I would, be racing the ghost of myself, which is always a little scary, when I've gone through recovery and am afraid and trying to avoid comparison with my past self and not think about that as much. And I think that the tough thing about it is you just kind of have to take it on, because it's not like it can really be avoided in track. Track is super objective. You're always going to be looking at times and splits and results and places. So it's super easy to compare, and it's not really something I could avoid. But I think like one way that I started to look at it was it's not just about, the times I run or the places I get. I'm really like dedicated to the process of it, and like building and investing in myself and investing in my fitness, and just knowing that like if I can continually invest in myself, build my fitness, take care of my body, that consistency over time will result in the best version of me as an athlete and person. And so just knowing like, okay, one season, one split, one time, one place, that's not the be all end all. It's really about years building towards, my ultimate potential. But going into track season, I was like, I hadn't done it for a couple years, partially because of the comparison thing, and then partially just because it hadn't sounded exciting. It had just sounded scary. But this year, or last year in 2024, like it just sounded so exciting to me. It got me amped up. I wanted to do it. I wanted to train like that, and I wanted to race the best in the US in the steeplechase. And I was just like so excited for it. And that was the reason that I decided to go for it ultimately. And my first race, where I was trying to run a trials qualifier, was definitely scary. I was like super nervous, didn't know what would happen, was scared it would be embarrassing, or I'd run way slower than I had in the past, but it ended up going completely fine. I got the trials qualifying time, and I was just super excited to have the time and to know, like, okay, I'm not far off of my best. I am like in a great place to build from this season, and it just had me excited about where I could go with the right training. After my first race, I think that excitement just grew because it was on par with my fastest opener I'd ever had. And I didn't feel like I had necessarily maxed out during the race. I think I maybe paced myself too conservatively. And I also felt like there was just room for improvement with barriers and water jumps and all of that. So I was excited to keep working. And then I went to another race and ran a faster time. I ran 9:31, which at the first race I'd run 9:37. So it was a good jump in the right direction, but again, felt like I had a lot to improve on. My tactics weren't very good. My water jumps weren't very good. I was just kind of all over the place. And so ultimately, we decided to do another steeplechase before the Olympic trials, which wasn't the original plan. But between my second race and the third race we had just added, I went to Boulder to do a training camp. And my coach lives in Boulder, so he was able to pace me in workouts and be there during them. And so we headed out there. It was me and Spencer and our dog, Georgie. And we lived in this like tiny little Airbnb studio apartment thing and just trained for 3 weeks, I think. And I feel like in that time, I just started having really good consistency in my training, hitting really hard workouts, like running splits that I had never done before. And I just felt like all this momentum building behind myself, that like the rest of the year had been going fine and I'd been racing pretty well and I was feeling good, but I had never felt this level of consistency with my training. And so going into my final race of the regular season at Portland Track, I was just like, it's on, like it's actually happening. Like I actually have good training and I'm actually feeling confident right now. So I went to Portland, and in the race, it was a good field, but it was like just the perfect level of challenge where I was like, if I have a great day, I could win here. Like these are people that I can compete with, and I know that I'm in a good spot. And so the race started, I was with the lead group, and then probably 800 in, I started to fall off a little bit. The pace like quickened and I was a little bit behind, but I was like maintaining contact or doing as well as I could to maintain it. And then with maybe a K to go or 3 laps to go, I managed to reattach to the lead group. And at that point, it was kind of like what it had been at the cross country championships. I didn't feel bad in this race, but like I noticed that I wasn't feeling any more tired as the race went on. Whereas like at 800, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should go with this move. We have a lot of race left. But at 2K in, I still felt exactly the same. And I was like, okay, like I could match any moves right now because I'm feeling pretty good. And then with 2 laps to go, I started like trying to take the lead, but this other girl in the race, Pamela Koska, was like right with me and was matching that. And so I was just running on her shoulder. And then we were literally stride for stride. Like every time I tried to get a little bit ahead, she would surge and catch up until the final water jump. And then off the water jump, I just tried to surge and like kick really hard into the home stretch. And I managed to get a little distance on her and get the win. And I ran a PR as well of 9:24. I hadn't won a pro race since on the track since 2019. So Like, it was really exciting and momentous. Like, I had kind of forgotten what the feeling was when you're on the track and in it with a lap to go, and it's so electric. Just like, you get flooded with adrenaline, and it's obviously hard, but you kind of don't notice how hard it is because you're just so excited. So after Portland, feeling super good, super excited for the trials, I was going to go race a 1500 in Canada, but 9 days before the trials, I ended up testing positive for COVID. So I wasn't able to go to Canada, and it ended up being like a really mild case. So I was able to keep running. Like, I think I had to skip one workout, but it really wasn't too big of a deal. I think mainly it just impacted my confidence. I was a little bit worried that I wasn't going to feel quite as good as I had at Portland. But going into the trials, I had my family there and Spencer, and like was feeling, very excited for it. Obviously had like so much support from my YouTube audience and Instagram followers. Like, I had been documenting this entire year, like building up to the trials. And I think everyone could kind of feel the excitement. Like, I had made a lot of strides and progress, and I had a better shot than I had originally thought I would. And so that was super exciting. Managed to make it through the prelims. I got the last big Q in the second heat, and it was so stressful. Prelims are always so stressful. They're more nerve-wracking than the final, in my opinion. But managed to make it through, was super excited. And then going into the final, I was like making a plan with my coach, and we were like, okay, you really just gotta like go out hard, try to get towards the lead. Like, you hurdle so much better when you're in front of the pack. Like, try to stay on the rail as much as possible. And then, of course, gun goes off immediately. I'm at the back. Like, I don't know how it happened. I just am. I'm in last place. Like, don't know, it's one of those things where like I had these intentions and it just didn't end up happening. And then, as we had kind of said, I hurdle a lot better when I'm at the front. And I was at the back. So my barriers were bad. My water jump was horrendous on that first lap. And I ended up just getting gapped almost immediately from the lead pack. And then I just kept trying to like fight as hard as I could for every second and every spot, even though like in the moment emotionally I was like very sad just because I had worked so hard, and like after a lap and a half I was pretty much out of the race. But I ended up running another PR and getting seventh. I ran 9:21 at like seventh. Obviously, it's not top three, didn't make the team, but it was still a success in a way because it was the fastest I'd ever run and the best I'd ever placed at the Olympic trials. So I was happy about that, but just kind of sad with the way the race had played out and the way that I didn't race as confidently as I would have liked. Yeah, it haunts me, that race, it just didn't go the way I wanted it to. And I think my biggest takeaway from this race was just that I need to be at USA's every year, practicing that championship style of racing, practicing being in a crowd in the steeplechase, because it's such a different experience to be in a steeple race with 15 women that have PRs that are all within 10 seconds, like that's such a close pack, and it's just a hard dynamic to race in. Going into 2025, I was feeling pretty good because the end of 2024, I was in great shape. I had a good trail season and was, just excited for the next year. I did have to get surgery at the end of 2024 because I had a mass in my neck, which was so random, like least running related surgery possible. Literally just in my neck, like not used for running whatsoever. But so a little bit out of shape going into 2025 because I had to take a couple weeks off for that. But the plan was to start with a road half marathon, which I had never done before, at Mesa Half Marathon. And just spent January kind of doing workouts, building towards that. And Spencer ended up running a lot of those workouts with me, which was really fun, but definitely felt like I had lost more fitness than I had anticipated from the surgery, and was not feeling like nearly as much like pop, and like the paces weren't coming as easily, but was just kind of like slowly working and building fitness, and felt like just before Mesa, maybe the week before, was when I finally started being like, oh, okay, like I'm feeling kind of good in workouts. I think this is going to be okay. And went to Mesa, and it was really hard. I have a lot of respect for marathoners and half marathoners after experiencing that. Mile 10 nearly took me out, but ended up running kind of like the back end of what my goal time would be. My goal was between 70 and 71, and I ran like 71:10. So overall, a good race. Wasn't like the stellar day everyone hopes for, but it was solid. And the plan after that was to race a 10K. So I came back to Boulder, started doing workouts again, was feeling really good, had like some like workouts that I was super happy with. And then I got injured. My shin started hurting, and it turned out I had a stress reaction in it. So wasn't able to race the 10K, had to take like, it ended up being, I think 4 or 5 weeks off. Did a ton of biking, a lot of elliptical, aqua jogging, strength training, just the usual injury stuff. A lot of time staring at walls. and then just started slowly working back in. And that kind of threw off my season. And I was planning on, racing a 10K, racing a 5K, racing a steeplechase, and then going to the US Trail Running Championships. But instead, I ended up going straight to the US Trail Running Championships as my first race post-injury, which was intimidating because it's obviously a competitive race. And the top 3 make the team for that as well. And I ended up placing 6th. And, I got very emotional after that race, which was kind of surprising because I knew that I didn't have a great shot at the top 3 given my short buildup. I think I only had 3 weeks of running before it, but just got really emotional, I think, because it's just sad, like seeing those opportunities not come to fruition, or just not being in the place you want to be when those opportunities do arise. Like, we just, as runners, don't have control over the racing calendar. And yeah, it was just kind of sad because I was like, oh, if I were like at my best right now, I think I really could have fought for a spot on this team, but I wasn't. And that, it's just upsetting. Even though I didn't feel like I had a bad race or ran badly, I think I gave it my all and had a pretty solid day. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So I do find it interesting. Like, I feel things much more strongly than I used to, because when I was restricting my food a lot, like that kind of overpowered everything else. Like, I didn't feel my emotions because all of my thoughts and emotions were focused on the food. And it's different now. And I do find that it's hard for me to navigate just because I'm not necessarily as used to it as I should be. But I mean, I'm learning, I guess. And I think one piece of it is just that I have to learn to like separate my identity from my running, and like make sure that I have other things in my life that I'm excited about and that fulfill me, and just making sure that like not reaching a goal in running isn't some sort of a personal failure. It's just a missed goal in running, and not something that needs to impact like my value as a person.
Separating what we do from who we are. That is a lesson we can all benefit from. I know it is a good reminder to me. And that does bring us to the end of Allie Ostrander's running story on the podcast. A huge, huge thank you to Allie for coming on the podcast and sharing her story. Allie, thank you so much. I wish you all the best in all of your pursuits going forward. I also want to give a thank you to Morgan for helping to connect me with Allie. Thank you, Morgan. Now, next up for Allie, she's back on the track. After the solid but frustrating U.S. Mountain Championships, which happened back on June 1st, Allie turned her focus to getting ready for the U.S. National Track and Field Championships, where she will be racing the steeplechase. The first round of competition for that event is this Thursday, July 31st, so just in a couple days. And of course, in addition to watching the national championships, you can keep up with Allie's running and racing by following her online. She has a terrific YouTube channel, and she is a great follow on Instagram. So look to the show notes, and I will provide links to how you can follow Allie online. And that does bring me to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, strong, variety-filled strides forward. Women's Running. Women's running stories.